Aloha mai kako pakahia pau. Greetings to one and all. My name is Neil Hannes, and I'm pleased to be collaborating with the American Association of Geographers in presenting this webinar series in preparation for your annual conference to be held in Honolulu next April. Today's topic will discuss the Kumulipo, our Hawaiian understanding of creation. So lean in, tune in, open up to the story of the creation of Pele's home in Hawaii. Listen for the elements and places. Pele, magma. Namaka Okaha'i, the cause of the fault lines in the earth. Kamahoali'i, Pele's older brother and the initiator of eruptions. Kane, Miluha'i, Kane, who curls and bends, the passage that allows vertical movement of the magma. Listen for the name of the island which will serve as the site of your conference. Oahu, and all its place names. Alia Pakai, Pu'uwaina, Leahi, Peleula, Makapu'u, Kane Hoalani, Pele's father, the migratory path of Pele, the pool of magma by the sun. These are the elements who eventually create the geography of the Hawaii into which you are most welcome. Pele migrates across the world's oceans in the family's fleet of canoes. At the very same time, Pele migrates in a parallel journey under the world's oceans via lava tubes. Leahi Hall and Kekuhi, Kealiʻikanakaole of Halauohia present this to you all in narrative and poetic chant form. It is an honored gift to receive one's Hawaii ko'i Honua as welcome into this island consciousness. I present to you now Leahi and Kekuhi. Aloha mai.
Mai ka hiawahine o pele, mai ka aina I pola, pola me ka puna hula, kane mai ke au la la pai ka lani, mai ka o pua la pai ka hiki. Mai ka hiki ka wahine o pele. So we start here, wonderful friends, our new friends, with Kumakoe hele me ku'umaupo ki aloha, the creation of Pele's home in Hawaii. So we follow along in this wonderful story about Pele as she makes her way to Hawaii from Kahiki. Kahiki is just that place right beyond the horizon where we just get that space that we just haven't seen yet, that we don't know yet. So wherever you are in your spaces, as you look out to the horizon, to those spaces that you have not become familiar with, or, you're just not, it's not a familiar space yet. That's the Kahiki space where Pele comes from. And so as you join in with us with this wonderful story of Pele, think about where these spaces are for you. So we start here in Kahiki, just that place beyond the horizon. And here's this wonderful being, entity, sometimes a young girl, and her name is Pele. And so I invite you to just say aloha Pele, to greet her. And Pele happens to be the daughter in this story of Haumea. And Haumea can sometimes be known as Earth Mother, or those earthly elements that are just right on the top level of the soil, that space from which everything grows. And so Pele is one of those beings that emerge from this top layer of earth, from this wonderful entity called Haumea. So you look down at your space or right where you are, and you imagine all those spaces that are familiar to you, that are just that top layer of the earth. And so you recognize, you aloha, you greet your Haumea space right around you. And Haumea's father is Kane Hoalani. And Kane Hoalani is sometimes recognized as that companion, the heat that's the companion in the sky, the heat that comes from the sun. So all of those heat-generating spaces around you can be recognized as a Kane energetic. And for now, we'll just think about it. Oh, the sun, just the sun, the heat that emerges from the sun. So Kane Hoalani. So here's this wonderful entity, Pele, mother Haumea, grandfather Kane Hoalani. And she happens to have this wonderful uncle. And her uncle's name is, that's Kane Hoalani. Just, some images for you as you go along in this, as you join along in this story for us. So here's some Kane images, Mahano. And then she happens to have this wonderful uncle, and his name is Lono Makua. And lono makua, as you're imagining your spaces around you, is that horizontal space between the earth and the tippy tops of our mountain. And so in Hawaii, that space is where the atmospheric space where there's oxygen, where humans can exist. And when you think about Pele, who we're just starting to relate to as this element or this energy or this young girl with lots of fire, we think about the relationship between oxygen, which we find in this atmospheric space, just so happens to be something her uncle is quite familiar with, and his relationship to his niece, Pele, as this fiery form. So you start to imagine the relationship between oxygen and fire. And so we have this relationship being built, and you see the kinship relationships being built between all of these wonderful entities that we're referring to that are Pele's family, her kin. And so we see the connection between these energies around us in these images that are rooted from Hawaii. And from Kahiki, where Pele is with all these family members, she also has an older sibling. And this older sibling, her name is Namaka Kahai. And she's kind of the fault lines where some of she can also be sometimes these tidal waves. So you have this image of the older sister who is the tidal wave, a water image, and then Pele, the younger sister with the fire. And of course, in any family drama, there's got to be some good sibling drama. And so there's a little bit of dynamics between the older sister Namaka Kahai and the younger sister Pele. And in those sibling rivalries, Pele is encouraged by her mother, Haumea, after she uses her magma to come over, to cross over, to extinguish an area where Namaka Pokaha'i previously was. Haumea, Pele's mom, encourages her, hey, Pele, you should move away. It's time for you to move away from this space. And so Pele gets into a wonderful canoe, and this canoe is called Honua. And she just so happens to go on this journey to jump into Honua with other siblings. And so her other siblings that are joining her on this canoe called Honua are Kamohali'i. Ooh, that's curious. Aloha Kamohali'i. Another sibling that joins her, this is Pele's older brother, Kamohali'i. Other siblings that join her. And just so you know, what's very curious is we have three kane forms, three heat, right? We're starting to relate to these images, to these energies around us in our own spaces, heat, energy. Her three brothers that are with her on the Honua canoe are Kane Kamohali'i, Kane Miloha'i, and Kane Apua. All of these entities on the canoe with her to take her, to support her on this journey. And in addition to those older brothers, she also has the responsibility of a younger sister. And this younger sister's name is Hi'iaka. And Hi'iaka sits in the polio Pele. Hi'iaka ika polio Pele. So she sits right in the bosom of Pele. And she travels along on Honua with all of her older siblings until they hit just the very starts of Hawaii, and they hit the Moku Papa. And so they're just kind of like, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I think that's the right story, where the porridge is just too hot or too, I don't even know. Somebody's going to have to tell me about the Goldilocks. But, it's the bed. It's the bed. Anyway, she's testing her way. Pele is testing her way through the islands to make a home, to make a new home for her and her siblings. And so as she hits the first island, she hits the first Moku Papa, and she hits Nihoa, and she tests out that space. And it's too small. The earth is a little too wet, too much of a shoal. And so she makes her way down. And she gets to Lehua, which is this island that you see right between Nihoa and Kauai. And so she tests the land out at Nihoa, and she tests the land out at Lehua, and she tests the land out at Niihau. And it's getting better, but it's just not quite there yet. And next along in her story, after she leaves Niihau and she places Kaunaoa and Hi'iaka places lehua on Ni'ihau, there's a wonderful chant that happens, and it's called Kumakoehele.
Kumakoehele me tu maupoki halu Aija aina mato ikiole malalo akune mato me kupoki kiwi kava no ia utahoe atamohali kawi go wai holuni lele akuni mako kawi kauni o tahana no to buki ya kani apoe kawa kuma kapola kawai oni hoa kaina mako i pai mua ku lele ai ni mako kawi kauni o tahana no to buki ya kani apoe to ho ili te ho kawa anu i ke wai hoa ni o kumu ali ya kani apoe ini no ia uta hoia te moho ali ia pai ta aina i ka ia o le hui.
And so as you hear the poet and the chanter and the keeper of the memory of how Pele came to Hawaii, you listen for all the names of her siblings and the place names that come along the way. And so they travel and they reach after Nihoa and Kauai. They come to a place that you folks will become familiar with quite soon, is Oahu. And so in Oahu, our wonderful chanter will return here soon. But what you'll listen for in Oahu are these wonderful place names, just like Uncle Neil shared. Alia Pa'akai, Puowaina, Lai'ahi, Makapu'u, Pele'ula, and Kanehoalani. And I'm just going to put one little image here for us right at the end, as we continue to learn about the relationship Pele has and the Hawaii folks have to place. With Kanehoalani, we see Kanehoalani is not just the heat that comes out of the sun, but also a place on Oahu.
Uri honi tamo holi ki ni kola ko poki a kane a pu a iu ka oni ho pili a kuni ka ba o mo holi iu ka ne oni ho a ka ya kuni kola ko poki a kane a pu e ka u ko mo ka polo ka ba uri honi ka i ho ka ba o mo holi he vai holo ni ho ka wa kuni o mo holi ali kala au he pa o e imia nei kola ko ai e no oi ho ka i o le nai lo ka mai lo ka mo ali kala au he pa o ahu ka ai na ya ka nei ho nei o la ko ia li pa kai o le nai ta ai na.
And so once they get to Kanehoalani, there's a wonderful chant that happens once they get there, and it's called E Kanehoalani. And it goes, E Kanehoalani, E Kanehoalani, Aloha kaua, kau kahoku ho kahi hele kealalo. Kama kuku kapa kawahine, he wahine lohiau nana I kamakani, he makani lohiau ha upumai oloko. And so last week, you folks learned a little bit about Aloha Aku and Aloha Mai. And so we traveled along with Pele from Kahiki to Hawaii, along on the canoe Honua Yakea with her siblings, Kane Kamohoali'i, Kane Apua, Kane Nilihoa'i, and Hi'iaka. And we reached all the way, they reached into this story, we got all the way to Oahu, and we recognized some, there are things going on here. And we reach all the way over to some of these special spots that you guys might become familiar with as you visit Oahu. And we have here an example of one way to greet a space as you enter the space. Aloha kaua. So aloha was a concept that was introduced last week, and we're going to continue on with this theme this week as we understand the relationship Pele has to this space, the creation of this space for the Pele clan, and then also what it means to enter a space and to greet it.
Oh, that was epic, Leahi. Thanks, girl. Aloha nui kako. So you might be wondering what all this storytelling and chanting going on. Why all that's going on? Well, let me turn my volume up a little bit. There we go. This the ka'au, you just heard one of the many ka'au, K-A-A-O, ka'au. Can you say ka'au? Ka'au. This particular ka'au was one of the many truths, one of the many truths of origin, stories of origin that belong to this particular geography. And so there's not just one story of origin. In fact, there is a story of origin for the taro cultivation. There's a story of origin for for talking about the movement of the magma, like Neil introduced earlier, the movement of the magma in lava tubes under the ocean floor, which in fact parallels the movement of clans across the Pacific and then into the Hawaii reality. We also have ko'i honua for the origin of a particular occupation called the kahuna occupation. And the kahuna occupation are those professionals, much like yourselves, whose primary responsibility is to observe the land and the weather systems over centuries of time. And how they do that is they hear and receive stories from other people's mouths, and they receive chants, which are in fact poetic iterations of that same narrative. So this is what Leahi and I were gifting you this morning, is that gift of poetics and imagery. And the gift of poetics and imagery from an ocean perspective is the longer lasting mode of communication. And so the creation is called the creation story is called the ko'i honua. I want to introduce to you this word ko'i honua. So the word is ko'i, say ko'i, and then the next word is honua. Say honua, yes, that's it. If you commit yourself to any word, our kuhi friends, our geographer friends, if you commit yourself to any 5 words in the Hawaii landscape, honua, I would recommend, is one of those words. Honua is earth. It's the scale of the earth. in its planetary, on its planetary scale, Honua is also the scale of, in fact, your own floating land, whether that's America or what a lot of our native learners call moku honu, whether your honua is the Hawaii honua, or it could be the Japan, the honua of Japan. And then the little bit smaller scale of honua is this idea of the canoe that Leahi is talking about. This is the canoe becomes the honua. In fact, the canoe that Leahi was storing for you, that canoe's name is Honua. Say Honua. Honua Iakea. Iakea. We're practicing all the words, you guys, because we have a special gift for you in the last 30 minutes of our presentation. Yes. And so practice along with us. Let's see, where was I? Oh, Honua Iakea is the name of the big canoe. So on a human scale, that's your next scale of Honua. And now our bodies themselves are Honua. So these are indeed fractals of the same pulsing body. Doesn't matter if that body is biologically alive or that body is inert. Well, I'm going to put inert in quotes because in a Hawaii life way, the idea of inert doesn't exist, not even in an object that is called dead. So the honua is also, will go a couple more scales down. And the honua in your body are indeed those systems, the organs and all of their little functionings. And then let's go one more scale down. And then the honuas are also all those cells in your body. And you know where I'm going with this, all this about honua. I stopped to create that image for you because, and I wonder if, I'm not sure if Leahi's going to leave you with these slides. Part of the story, the story comes with images. Okay, either the images that we see in front of our face as we're moving along on our journey, or the images that are initiated because we happen to have a particular experience and we end up in this pulsing place that, like this story that Leahi just conveyed, this pulsing place that we've never ever experienced before. And somehow, some way, the story of the place is moving through all those honua and into the smallest honua that belong to my body. The Hawaii life way, Hawaii thinking, I kind of stay away. It's my personal preference to stay away from the word Hawaiian culture. Oh my God, it's so loaded, you guys. But the Hawaii life way sees all of those scales of honua interacting all of the time, always dynamic. And those multi-dimensional scales of reality of honua on the planet scale and then honua on the cellular scale are in fact engaged in this idea that we call creation all of the time. And so for us, creation is not just a point of origin and seeing itself then mature through time and space, and then seeing itself decay, and then seeing, I'm talking about creation now, as if creation has eyeballs. So hang with me. Okay. Seeing itself create until the inevitable shedding of one reality, which for a human being is flesh, and into another reality, which in the Hawaii life way is your next sort of is the next sort of iteration of yourself. Okay, so this thing that we call creation from a Hawaii life way is it sure is a cyclic activity. It is a function of the all of the people that Keahi I'm going to give you a new name, Keahi, that Leahi was talking about in the story. The shark brother, the fern sister. She showed a picture of the son, the grandfather's son. In some stories, the uncle's son. And so all of those relationships in the from the viewpoint of Ko'i Honua is all about how we step into creation as it's happening continuously, and how thinking bodies like ourselves step into spaces who okay. I know I'm irritating. First thing in the morning, you guys, it's 4:34 a.m. over here. I had just happened to be in Tokyo today. That's funny, huh? But spaces who in fact are continually moving through the cycle of creation, and so it's with no beginning and no end. Would that totally drive you crazy if everything that you knew in your world, your human life, the life of your home, the life of your course, your syllabi, the life of your mortgage, the life of your front yard grass? Wouldn't that be an interesting way to see the creation all around you as this super multi-dimensional and super dynamic kind of energy? That's what creation is. So we like to then house, we like the Hawaii practitioner doesn't live by just one creation story. You see, it's this story of the Pele element is in fact the story of environmental kinship for us, especially in Hawaii Moku, in Hawaii Island. It's the story of a kin-centric relationship between the Hawaii human body and all of the real Hawaii people, like the ohia trees, the real Hawaii people, like the healthy reefs, the real Hawaii people, like the 1.5 million year old honey creeper. All right. So when we step into these wonderful spaces, wherever you step into, but today we're talking about Hawaii. This pulse, the pulse that take time, like Neil introduced in the beginning, take time, take a moment, take a breath to lean in and attune immediately to the space. If from a viewpoint of creation, that is the point of creation on your own, on a human scale, where you decide in the moment not to whip out your phone and start taking photos of all the things, which is also good, because moving back to those images are, they're prompts for us to relay the story again and again and again and again. So back to how I got myself into this spin of jabbering. Back to the word koi. Koi is your adze. Koi is a stone adze. It's the tool that we to this day create canoes from. No, we don't only use the koi. Chainsaws. That's the action right there. Chainsaws. But the koi for some of our friends do use koi to haul out the smaller canoes. So the koi is the implement that digs out the log. So from this raw form, it now looks like it now has new function. The honua, like I was saying, the honua is the earth, and don't forget, it is the earth at many scales. The koi is the adze at many scales. So the koi honua is a creation chant. Okay, the koi honua is a creation chant. There's the genealogical chant, which is a particular format, and then there's the koi honua, like this one we just heard today. Wa kia no hia papa hanau moku hanau o Hawaii he moku hanau o Maui he moku ho ia e wa kia no hia ho hoku kalani hanau o Moroka i he moku hanau lana I kaura he moku lili o pupuna rua o papa ia ho hoku kalani hoi ho o papa no ia wa kia. That koi honua right there is the koi honua in which the vast expanse is unioned with this very the flat surfaces, and from that union emerges, as if being birthed from the woman's birth canal, now emerges Hawaii Island, and then emerges Maui, Molokai, Lanai, Oahu, and finally Kaho'olawe. And after the birth of Kaho'olawe comes this entity, this green entity, who, after he's born, a stillborn child is buried in the yard of his parents, Papa and Wakia. And it's the tears of Papa who waters that place. And from that place is birthed the very first taro. The taro, as in this particular koi honua, as the elder sibling of all the rest of the man Kanaka to come forward in the Hawaii reality. And so that Ko'i Honua tells us of the carving out of the earth and carving out a particular reality. Okay, so every time Ko'i Honua is created, all of the details that go along with that particular origin are beautifully orchestrated, choreographed, and then into this wonderful poetic that we call a Ko'i Honua. And when you get to unfold and unpack every single detail, every single element of that particular Ko'i Honua, who is Pele Honua mea? How many places has she been to? Is she really a she? No, she's not a she. She's not a she like her or me. Oh, that sounds like I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam. I am. Oh my God, I gotta drink water, you guys, before I faint. Okay. But in fact, as you're peeling back the layers of the Ko'i Honua, which you have now in the front of you, is layers upon layers upon layers of information that informs information. It's not something that we just let leak out of our mouth. Information informs us. Information from the Ko'i Honua informs us how to behave and how to relate to the elemental processes in our space. So if the Ko'i Honuas help us do anything, if the creation chants, whether you're talking about the creation of Mauna Kea, or you're talking about the creation of canoe carving occupation, or you're talking about the creation of landscapes by magma and all of the relatives. When we say relatives, we don't just mean uncle and mama and uncle daddy and Grammy and you know, young Kimo over there. When we're talking about relatives and when we're talking about Ko'i Honua, because the main functionaries in a Ko'i Honua is not Kanaka. What? You mean we're not it? We're not it, you guys. We're not it. We're part of the it, but we're not the it. Yeah. Sometimes we're the it in your own sort of cultivating of your deity self. You're your it. But when it comes to Ko'i Honua, what we're talking about is our observations at a particular point in time, where the largest, most visual, most active elemental force in a space is right there in front of your eyes over decades now, over centuries, is creating this phenomenon. Like the Pele is creating landscapes, like the canoe makers are creating canoes, like the hula people are creating hula shrines. Okay, like the geographers are creating geography things, you know? Yeah. Okay, so when we're relating to a Ko'i Honua, we're relating to a ko'i honua, not just as a reporter of, you remember the time when Pele created that land, like that. But we're also relating to the ko'i honua as younger sibling. And so this is when younger sibling, and we're relating to the ko'i honua depending on how your family attunes to a particular element. We're relating to the ko'i honua if it's Leahi, and let's say her family really relates to the element of what, Leahi? So I don't need to make this up because you're right in front of me.
Kaniho.
Yeah, Kaniholani. Okay, good. Her particular family is in relationship with Kaniholani. Okay, so for her, the ko'i honua of maybe a particular medicinal practice. Okay, that calls in the element of Kaniholani, which is heat, which is atmosphere, rain, spring water, and light. All right. So Leahi's gonna see, not just report on that ko'i honua as a storyteller would, but also engage that element in that ko'i honua as a relative would. Okay, so what we're talking about now is what? Leahi's like, yeah, but she's a girl, human person. Yeah, but yeah, but that's so limiting. That's so limiting. In the Hawaii reality, the fact that you are related to this line of, let's see, I'm related to my really old great grandfather, who happens to be related to this super cool like owl person from Oahu, who, by the way, happens to be related to a larger scale of himself. Remember, we're talking about scales. Yes, she's coming back around. It's very unlikely of me to actually come back around in a conversation. Oh, it's my ko'i honua. It's my birthday. I actually brought things back around. Oh my God. Can I write this down, you guys? It's monumental. Okay. So, oh shoot, now I lost myself. Okay. So now some great grandfather back in, I don't even know when I'm talking about, 1100s, let's just say. And he finds himself related to a particular owl person, a pueo, an owl, yes, with feathers and wings, indeed. Okay, in that biological form, we might not be able to find a relationship, but if you look into the multidimensional Kinolao. I'm introducing another huge concept right now. Kinolao, which are many body manifestations, many scales and scales and scales and scales. Okay. We see relative. We don't see how the owl is different from me because he has feathers in a beak. We see how the owl is relative to us, not just in terms of the biological makeup of that feather, or in terms of the chemistry of, or the physiology of that being, but in terms of the DNA of that personality, in terms of the mental astuteness of that personality, and in terms of the the prior engagements that in fact the owl people and the human people have in our history. And there have been more than sufficient not anecdotes, not cute family stories, documentation, different forms of documentation that in fact this owl person has come to rescue this particular family in more than one generation. What? And now guess what? All of that information gets folded into a beautiful poetic text called the Ko'i Honua. And now the community can look back at this Ko'i Honua and see particular names like you see in the Pele chant, and really feels with your senses certain attributes of between the human Kanaka relationship and the more than human relationships that we have in the universe. This is the one of the tricks to a healthy continuum in our spaces, that we maintain these relationships between the Kanaka person and the more than human. The more than human people, like our Ko'i Honuas have documented, are our check and balances as to how the Kanaka is relating to, is behaving, and it contributing, is extracting. The Ko'i Honua sort of gives us a really good idea of how we are engaging this 10 million year old space. I know it's not just 10 million. It sounds like a good number. Okay. So it's not just, oh, here you go. This is the Ko'i Honua for the Pele people. Yeah, and here you go. And if you learn this, then you know all the things about the Pele people. Well, you could. I'm not going to say you don't. I'm going to say you could. And the way you could is that you step into the story. What? Me step into the story? Guys and gals, and the sacred union of the two. Okay. When you're flying va'a, when you're flying canoe, yeah, she's making hulas over there. When you're flying canoe leaves your space, you have, like the Pele clan, left your current reality for another one. And like the Pele clan, you are now voyaging parallel, and it's not parallel, we all know this right here, parallel to the ocean space. And let me introduce you to the ocean real quick, because we have a special thing to do pretty soon. Leahi, you gotta boss me around. Like, just come in here and say, okay, girl, we're done. Girl, you gotta be quiet because we have to introduce this. Is that
Yeah,
good?
Eluogi.
Okay. And when your va'a leva, your flying va'a, it's not a metaphor, it's your airplane, lands in this new reality, how do you engage with that? How does this space become a part of your story? And how does your story become a part of this place? That is the primary interest that Hawaii people want to know. When we want to know that when we go into other people's spaces, when we go into the space of a great mountain, a great volcano, let's just say Kalamata volcano, okay? That is one hell of a like energetic. Okay, I've danced at the base of the Kalamata, and it's you cannot even know. Okay, moving on. So, and that is part of our job as human people who happen to be reared in the middle of an ocean, is that when we go to other spaces, our primary job is to go there as a relation, and now to interact as a responsible, behaved relative would act. You know, if one of my learners who act up in a space, guess what? No, for real, I send them home. I have this little note on the bottom, this caveat. If you act up in a space, because that means, what does that mean? That means you and this forest over here, you bringing your energy into that space. That's what that, and now what have you created? What are you generating in this space that is either beneficial or unbeneficial to the space? So that is always at the top of our in the front of our face and in our heart, is to take into a new reality, someplace where we go and visit or vacation or educate ourselves. This includes the college classroom, okay? To take into ourselves the pulse of that place, and then use the lessons of humankind to really relate to, behave as a loving relative would. If that means don't invite her, guys, I know we all love Aunt Jane, but don't invite her to your parties. Because, it could include that too. You don't always have to be, yeah, come. You could be like, we want this to be a beneficial engagement for all, so Aunt Jane needs to stay home. Okay, good. Okay, so we would love to offer you something. There he's going to introduce this line by line, and we would ask your curiosity, not patience, not indulgence, but we would ask your being curious learner, teacher, like peoples, to repeat every line after her, because this gift that we want to give you is going to belong to you. And this is your mini ko'i honua. Ready, Leahi? You guys ready? Wait. Okay. Dun dun dun. Cha-ching.
Sorry, I was typing in the chat and I didn't match up with you.
Oh.
Cha-ching! There it is. I didn't do my job. Sorry.
Okay, girl.
All right. So here is the individual personal mele mo'oku to greet, to ask to enter a space, to greet a space, and to relate as kin, right? Kin meaning the one way to interpret, just as Kekuhi was sharing, it's the opposite of separation, right? And so you bring, oh, sorry, okay. So here's the mele mo'oku, the first line, because just like we heard aloha kaua in that mele for kane hoa lani, right? We have here aloha, aloha e Oahu. So you'll repeat after me. Aloha e Oahu.
Aloha e Oahu.
E lai ahi e.
E lai ahi e.
Aloha.
Aloha. Guys, are you keeping up? Are you keeping up, guys? Okay, so don't worry, you guys, because along with this printed piece, we're also going to attach a Puana piece, an MP3, an audio form, audio doc that has the pronunciation that we're doing right now. Okay, okay, carry on, girl.
The next line is e waikiki e.
E waikiki e.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Eia.
Eia.
Mako.
Mako.
And here's where it gets fun. So I'm going to say this first, which is just o. That's how it's o. Yeah. And then you're going to enter your home here. So this is where you start to introduce all your, as we were sharing earlier, people, your kin. You introduce your kin to this space. So o, and I'll introduce mine, o Maui.
O Maui.
O Haleakala.
O Haleakala.
And then don't forget you insert yours as we go along here. O Pe'ahi.
Pe'ahi.
Aye.
O Pe'ahi.
O Naone Kekanaka.
O Naone Kekanaka.
Iola.
Iola.
Oko.
Oko.
Iola.
Iola.
Mako.
Mako.
Nei.
Ni. Oh, that's a cool chant. Thank you for giving that to us.
Thank you for giving that to us. So here's all a little bit of what's going on in this mele. And I know you folks in last week's webinar talked about potential rituals to enter spaces or a way to enter, and ritual, prayer, dance, storytelling, just a way to tap into a different operating system than just your thinking mind, which is so powerful. But then there are other things that have lots of potential to connect with. And one of them is through chant and through our voice. And so this is a way, as you step off that moku leva, that va'a leva, just as Kekuhi was sharing, and you take a pause as you get off the plane and you breathe in the air and you let your eyes soak in everything that's going on around you, you can call out in aloha, in greeting. And so we see with this first line here, aloha, you know what, you can go up and look in the Hawaiian dictionary, and we'll post a link to that here. All the wonderful definitions of aloha. It's wonderful. But this mele is a mele komo, and here's your little guide to how to approach this mele here. So a mele komo is a request or ask for permission to enter, recognizing the vibratory dance of the universe, right? So we understand all the ways Hawaii people had all these ko'i honua, right? These creation chants to remind us all these different places that already have their own kind of vibration to them, right? And so mele komo is this ask, okay, here's my body, here's my honua. Can I enter into this honua here, this different scaled honua here? And then a mele mo'oku, is the introduction of places and features that nourish and feed you, that have come, that because of their existence, you are able to exist in that space. And they sustain you for life. So it's a loving way to acknowledge the people, quote unquote, in your space, yeah? To bring them along with you, to recognize that they are the source of my ability to live in my space. Here are my kin, and introduce them to the kin of this new space. Aloha in terms of relationships. I know you guys talked about last week in terms of reciprocity, and it's a beautiful way to acknowledge exchange. Oh, good thing I put a C in there. So in this way, aloha means to initiate and grow a deep sense of exchange. It's the initiator. You're the mele mo'oku and the mele komo. You're initiating that relationship, right? You're adding a little bit of oomph behind that relationship, that exchange relationship. Laiahi and Waikiki are both places near where your conference will happen. Laiahi is also known as a newer name for Laiahi is Diamond Head. But if you take a look when you're over there, it kind of looks like the brow of a tuna, of ahi fish. And then we have Waikiki as a name of the ocean, the seashore. It's a area within the moku, which is Kona, but it's also, there are a lot of underground springs that used to be over there. So Waikiki, it's kind of spurting water. And then we have also Iolo Oko, and this is a beautiful line, and it kind of sums up and gives another reflection of that beautiful exchange and reciprocity. Iolo Oko, Iolo Mako Nei is the recognition that my life is dependent on yours. So all the scales of life, and your life is dependent on mine. So that is a direct reflection of that concept of kinship. Yeah, there's no separation. We like to think that our skin is like, ooh, pow, no more. And it's, oh man, all the scales of Honua that are happening. So that is an offering that we will share with you guys. We'll get out with the Puana audio, but please, it's an invitation for you folks to be able to use this as a way to initiate aloha.
Hey, psst, let me interrupt you. Can you put that back? We're going to chant it. Let's give them a sample right now in this moment. And then on top of that, we will send you the sample MP3. Okay? Or if it's not already out there. So let's go ahead and use Leahi's example with all of her information in there. I just want to add, do you see that line number 4 where it says Eyamako? Here we are. Okay? Here we are. So that means you and all of the people you brought with you. No, not your other half or your weekend special or your advisors or not those guys. I mean this person, and then all of the energy that sustains you day after day in your space, your mountain, your Kanaka people, your family, your water. Who are those people? And in the Hawaii way, in the way of creation, ko'i honua and mo'oku'auhau, the continuum chant, we don't separate out those energies because they're in your very cells for the time that you're here, and your cells are going to want to engage. All right, so recognizing that, number one, you're coming with all this energy, and the other thing is recognizing that you come with this energy, like this is a part of me. Yeah. Okay, let's chant this. Aloha e o ahu. And if you don't have like the chanty voice, no problem. Just say it. Aloha e o ahu.
Aloha e o ahu.
Elai ahi e.
Elai ahi e.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Okay, and just don't let the words spill out of your mouths, okay? Like you have to mean it. Turn to Diamond Head turn to Leahi when you're doing this and say aloha as if Leahi has been waiting for you to get here. That's how you say aloha to that place. Okay? E waikikie.
E waikikie.
And then imagine the thousands upon thousands of springs that used to be under all of those hotels, and imagine them making your feet cold. Aloha.
Aloha.
Eyamako.
Eia mako.
O Maui.
O Maui.
O Haleakala.
O Haleakala.
O Pe'ahi.
O Pe'ahi.
O Naone ke Kanaka.
O Naone ke Kanaka.
Iola o ko.
Iola o ko.
And don't rush this part. Iola mako nei.
Iola mako nei.
That is preparing for that, sitting in that, breathing into that. Iola mako nei. And then 2 claps. Deep breath. That's your ritual. That is the most important ritual that you are going to engage in when you're here. And we give it to you freely. It was composed by Leahi and I just 5 days ago for your benefit and for the benefit of our people and all the people you come with meeting one another. Probably not for the very first time. Okay, we're done. Question.
Oh, mahalo nui. Oh, that was awesome and deep. And we do have some questions, but Leahi, I'm going to go back to you first, to this relationship between place and a person. Haleakala is your mauna. Pe'ahi is your kai. How do they nurture you? What is that relationship like? How are people nurtured in Minnesota or Chicago or Florida by the place around them and the features of that place?
Oh yeah, they play. I could repeat to you folks, and I'm sure all the rest of you folks who go through different functions like the water cycle, and you can think of the evapotranspiration cycle, and you can think about all that's happening in the environmental phenomena space, right? And that you can think from that space, from just a logical space, about how important it is to life actually being able to exist, that without water on islands in the most remote island archipelago, that if we don't make a god and make divine the water process, life will not sustain itself, right? We can think about it from that space. But I think what the invitation here is, and what I'm continuing to learn about the comfort and the sustenance that are provided from these entities that have existed here, just like Kekuhi shared about the owl person, the owl people who have lived here for so long, is that your mind is 10%, your thinking logical, your executive function is 10% of your mind. And then there's this 90% subconscious and your psyche. And so how it is that those places existing in this particular space, Haleakala, and why it has the name Haleakala, that the images, that the clouds that it scoops in around it, that once you start to relate to the images that are happening, they help when life lifes. And I'm going to be very specific about this. We recently had fires on Maui, and a lot of people, it's a crisis right now. And in that moment, because of the training that I've done through Halau Ohia, we call on those entities. We call on the homeostasis that those entities can bring into their spaces, the balance that those entities can bring in their spaces, that Haleakala will gather the clouds once more, that Pu'u'e'eka, where the West Maya Mountains, will gather the clouds around them once more, so that the right kind of phenomena, the right kind of cycles in our spaces happen again. So in a very kind of psyche-based way, it taps into a part of my own body, my own kino, that isn't accessible just through, like, I studied, I got a PhD or an EDD, and I work really hard to do the syllabus. And then what about the nurturance of the other part of my body? And then in a real crisis management example, it's the ability to have a relationship with the functions that the Haleakala plays and Mauna E'eka plays, and being able to entice in my relationship to it back to being able to do its function, so that people receive so that life happens again in this space, and it reorients, the cycle rebalances itself. Did I answer your question?
You did, very much so, and I think it goes to the purpose of the webinar and the potential valuable outcomes of the conference itself is not just to have people be able to write down or remember more things, different things about how Hawaiians might view creation of our island home, but how we might relate to space in a way that really creates benefit for us, and where we create benefit for the space. That reciprocity, yeah? Are we on track? This could be an extraordinary conference, as conferences go, because not just the mind will be fed when you're here, but if we're open to it, the conferees are open to it, then their whole soul and their whole existence is fed.
Beautiful.
Okay. We have some questions. Let me go to their questions of some of our audience members. As you created those incredible resonances in your singing, airwaves traveled so strongly that I felt them in my body here miles away. I thought about the relationship of a person's body or being and the space they are entering and creating. Can you say what it feels like to be the singer creating this space? The sender of the waves.
Yeah, so that's now going to be my new stage name, Sender of the Waves. I love it. Yeah, so thank you for noticing that and speaking it and then receiving it, because that's exactly what Sender of the Waves intends, right? So how does it feel to do that? Like when you can sit and hold your child and put the child to sleep, and it's the vibration of the chest putting the child to sleep. Really, it's not the words. And we're taught very young, when we're taught how to vocalize through oli, or through chant and singing, that somewhere in here, even we have voices up here, way up here, that we press on and that vibrate different resonances. But somewhere in this body, Honua, we have I can't think of the word right now, the same resonance in the body earth. So if I can connect to that, and then at the same time just sit with you, then it's done. And it feels exactly how you felt it. That's how it feels in my body.
Mahalo. More to add, Leahi?
No, I think it probably, if I were to add anything, if you don't mind, Uncle Neil, I might tag it into the next question, and just kind of connect it to a little bit. So the second question, what are some ways this knowledge transforms the practice of growing food and participating in gathering of resources while replenishing creation? What are some of the ways geographers who work in these areas can help study and transform practices? Yeah, great question. Well, just there's an opportunity for, and this might seem quite obvious after we've been talking about kinship the whole time, but there's an opportunity for you to have a direct relationship, and that the direct relationship can happen in a lot of different ways. It can happen through just eating food that's grown in your space. It can happen through singing or chanting or dancing about the space, but that there are multiple doorways in to the kinship that is already present. And to me, I guess the memory, the ko'i honua, especially why we're talking about ko'i honua today, right? Ko'i honua help you remember the first things first, priority things. You know what I mean? That when we get lost in the humanness of things, that we come back to these things that are the carving of life in this space. So whatever your ko'i honua is, it's knowing that you can have, as a geographer, whatever the creation story of your geography practice is knowing that as you get further back, and in Hawaii, the creation of this space, one way is through the Pele migration here, but that you can have a relationship to it, and it doesn't just have to be as an academic. It can be that you sing or you tell stories. You tell a story of that place, and you just let it. And the beauty of images, right? So images come across in stories. They came across in some of what we started here earlier today. They came across in the way that Kekuhi described what you want to feel when you say Leahi, when you say Waikiki, that in that way, you participate in transformation or the continuum of those spaces, knowing how to do what they already know how to do. There might be hotels on top of those springs, but those spaces know how to do those things. And so when you recreate that and you feel that in your own body, you then participate in that space, remembering again. And it's not a remember as in past tense, it is now. And that's one of the things that Hawaii Lifeways, I think, teaches us is, oh, no, I participate in it now. And so that's one of the invitations with this mele komo and mele mo'oku for you, is in whatever's happening in life that you have this chant to come into, to participate in that very moment, in that exchange with place, that the place knows you, and that you return all of those functions that that place is known for back into its cycle.
So in the now, since you mentioned that, Pele is still active. And although the conference will be on Oahu, we anticipate that some people may carve out time before or after the conference to take a little trip to Hawaii Island and visit Pele and see that which you're talking about. Kekuhi, some thoughts about the value of that experience and how what they might do to get the most out of that time with Pele?
Yeah, so this song that we've given you to use throughout your journey can be used everywhere you go. We'll change out, I'll ask Leahi before she sends the final document to you. I'll ask her to put in maybe the lines for if you intend to come here, you know. So you know, I'm just gonna resonate what Leahi is. I'm just gonna sit in that the resonance that she's talking about, and that is, if when you come, don't come as a tourist. When you come to sit with the Pele, smell the sulfur, because you may not slip a rock into your pocket. Don't do that, because we have this mountain of rocks that people return after they get home because they feel they have the heebie-jeebies. Like, okay, anyways, I was just saying, if you're already going to breathe in the sulfur and the magic of the space. What I encourage you to do, if you come over to the Pele, and if we're available, we'll come and meet you, you know, and introduce you to that form of creation. The Pele's primary element is magma. So the Pele, although we like to anthropomorphize, humanize how she looks, she is the rock under your feet everywhere you go. Okay, that's her byproduct. So go to the Pele as a relative. Pick a space that's safe stay behind the things. Yeah, the gate. Okay. Anyway, pick a space that's quiet. You and your friends stop talking about unnecessary things. You know, don't talk about how junk the breakfast was or how bloated you feel. Forget all that. Forget that. When you park your car and you go out, my suggestion is you go out either to the Kilauea lookout or you go to the south side of the crater. It's a wonderful half-mile walk down to that overlook. And it's super wild out there. And be quiet. And the ritual is just breathe in. And then you'll know the Pele. You don't need to know any information about the Pele. You don't need to know that that's my relative. You don't need to know how many journeys she has. You don't even need to know the geochemical makeup of that particular gas that you just breathed in. Who cares? In that moment, be relative with the Pele. All of her relatives that we chanted about are in that space with her. Not people, features, geographical features, and little creatures. The sun, the moon, the stars go at sunrise or go at sunset. That'll give you the best punch. And just shut your mouth for a little bit. I'm not swearing at you. I have to remind myself to shut my mouth. And then my brain will slowly shut down. And then I will breathe the space of the Pele. And then in my own little private space, I say my mele mo'oku. You now own a mele mo'oku. All right? You're welcome. You are welcome, you guys. And say that. And have every person with you say that. And when you're done, say thank you. Say thank you to the space for the new insight that you get when you go there, and be quiet and bring all your relatives with you and introduce yourself to the space as if you have been here for decades. Don't go as a tourist, because once you do that with the socks and the hat and the brochure and all the things like that, okay, once you do that, you put in a mindset. And if you want to really experience the Pele, don't do all that. Just go straight to do the tourist thing after. Okay, that's my 100 cents for that question.
Well, that's beautifully said, though. Now these are many of the members are academics, so we have a question here about other reading or other educational material we can further learn about this, and I'd like to hear if you have suggestions on that. But what you've just said is the reminder to not only rely on that as your means of understanding, but to rely on every other sense and being here in place. So the importance of that message shouldn't be lost as we go to their last questions of, are there ways that some good material for them to access, or a place to Google, or a store to go to find good resources that they might add to their libraries and study over time?
Yeah. Um, so, if you want to study Ko'i Honua, go to the most famous one that we have that is just now being understood by us. And that's the Kumulipo, the creation chant by the Queen. The Kumulipo is a wonderful introduction into the heartbeat of our environmental relations. It is the story of how this reality is created in a big sort of from dark, and from an explosion, the magma happens, the corals happen, all the coral heads happen, and then boom, everything explodes out of that. And so that is a wonderful study. Martha Beckwith has some language about different creation stories. It's a little bit outdated, but we don't have anything. Oh, I'm going to pull back. That's not correct. The UH Press just published, what is it called? Kamo'olelo? Is it called Kamo'olelo? It's by the editors, Kaliko Baker and his wife, Tammy Baker. And they invited a bunch of us to write a chapter in that book. And it is a collection of stories. And not only a collection of stories, but it is how to understand the stories as informants, as relatives. It says the whole theme of the book is that the story is the intellectual and the feeling center of the culture. So that's an interesting book to get. Kumulipo is a really good example of a ko'i honua. Anything from the Fornander collection. Abraham Fornander did a super awesome job at collecting information and then documenting it. The 3 super expensive Bible-sized series that's in my mind is sort of the top layer of consumable material. And then we just have so much. Leahi, did you drop anything else? And whatever else Neil folks are suggesting, and Kamanath folks and Kavika Winter, Mahina Paishan, every other work that they suggest is probably like the stuff.
Those
But
are
what
wonderful.
Leahi and I are talking about when it comes to the poetics is this is decades of study. And I had to figure out, my mom at one time, my grandmother at one time, and then we had to figure out how to teach major pieces like the Kumulipo and like the Pele creation chants. We had to figure out how to teach that to people without teaching it from a very physical ontology. You know what I'm talking about? The physical ontology is good to a point, and then the religious way at which we cling on to our physical ontologies is really the end of everything else that it means to be Hawaii, or just to be human, or to be present on this earth. So we really had to figure out how to teach this. That is not documented. So have a wonderful time hearing people's stories. And stay in the story. Ask yourself the best piece of information that you can glean from creation and your particular relationship is do this mo'oku au hau. Say the mo'oku au hau. Say aloha to Leahi And Leahi will give you information that's not located anywhere else. That's our message. Thank you,
Very
Neil.
good. Mahalo nui for all of your presentation today and for that wonderful advice. The Mikhail is put into the chat that over time, as we accumulate the resources, and we'll remember the ones you've suggested here today, and as others suggest resources, I think of Kahunua Ola as a good read as well. That we will keep adding them and post them on the AAG website. But that's all we have time. Oh, one more question. Is there a way for the wonderful mele presented to be conditioned into the subconscious so that it is initiated when entering places, spaces, even if the conscious mind forgets?
Oh, totally. Who are you asking these deep questions? We're going to be friends, us guys. Just do it. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Just do it and breathe into it and don't think about it. Don't think about it. Let our pulsing places permeate you. And number one is be permeable is the thing. So if you're thinking too much about the thing, then permeability levels drop. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
The more you do it, it becomes part of you and second nature without even thinking, right? It's just, you get familiar. Well, it's a wonderful session. Oh, Kekuhi, did we hear you say it's your birthday? Happy birthday, if so.
Thank you. But I think I meant that as I'm experiencing a new reality, and so now it's my birthday again. But September 28th is my real birthday, just in case you're in town.
Very good. Well, we'll have another session that day, but we wish you a happy birthday. We'll be thinking of you.
Mahalo, Neil.
Kekuhi, thank you very much for joining us, especially so early in Japan. We appreciate you getting in the wee hours to be a part of this, and it was the appropriate place for us to go after Aloha Akua, Aloha Mai, to go to the Kumulipo and to your Ko'i Honua. So, mahalo to everybody for participating today. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, which will come in next month. Aloha no.
Aloha. Thank you, Uncle Neil.